afternoon or good evening or good morning. First of all, elephant in the room, haven't posted in about 8 days. Yeah, lots gone on. I'll explain in a second. Second of all, you may see that. All right, I've got a problem where I pick my skin, like absolutely, like animalistically until they bleed. And then I think, I'm never going to do that again. And then I do it again. Welcome back. It's a joyful, hot day. As you can see, I'm kind of sweating, but on the camera, it looks like I'm glowing, so that's fine. Recently, I just wanted to get into something for some context as to why I've been posting very inconsistently, but I don't want to do a whole video about it because, like, it's pointless. But I recently got diagnosed with ADHD. It's been a long time coming. Yeah, I've just kind of taken some time to, think about that and reflect on that because, I look back and I'm like, damn, how'd I get through 22 years? I thought maybe it would be good for you guys to know just because it might give an answer as to why I'm so inconsistent and also why I am. Was that the door knocking? Why I am the way that I am. Yeah, that's just a little semi-announcement. I'm actually really happy about it. I'm getting medicated very soon, so it's going to be unstoppable. Yeah. Anyway, so a lot of you have been tagging me in a whole bunch of stuff recently, ranging from the Sweeney soap that has a hole in it to the Sabrina Carpenter album cover. I thought I'd treat you today with a bit of a chatty video. If that's not your thing, please do leave, because I like to talk to myself for a while, because I have some thoughts. Of course I do. So here I am to share them with you. This is a long intro. Let's just start. Okay, so this is said album cover. As you can see, well, you can't really because there's some goofy ass text covering it, but it is a man, or what we assume to be a man, holding Sabrina by the hair as she, kind of stares gazingly into the camera. I actually think there are many talking points for us to go through. Some for kind of both sides, really, because you've got the people that think she is the devil in disguise, the devil incarnate, the worst person to ever exist. They think she's basically Hitler. And then you've got the people who glaze and they're like, Sabrina, you could do no wrong. Don't clip that, please. So I'm kind of somewhere in the middle with this. Now, you might be shocked, all right, because a lot of my haters like to think that I am a very woman-hating woman, internalized misogyny and all the like, but that's not the case at all. In fact, this situation very, very oddly sparks something within me that actually makes me want to defend Sabrina. But wait before you think, Katie, what madness are you on? My honest opinion about this situation is that I do think it is worthy of, discourse. I think it's worthy of talking about. And like many others, I do find it slightly insulting to, what we have worked towards in modern day society. But I don't think that is entirely her fault, so to speak. I have this weird issue with women who, choose to do things that I genuinely believe slightly are taking us back in society. Because it's on one hand, I think, why would you do this? You're an individual woman with her own decisions and choices. And you know what's going on in the world right now. You know how women are unequal. They aren't treated as equals. We are seen as objects. Why would you put out an album cover where you are on your hands and knees being dragged by the hair? What is the purpose in that? What's the point in that? Many people and fans are calling it satire. I would disagree. I think if it was satire, it would be the other way around. It would be her holding a man by the hair. God, if only. So I wouldn't say it's satire, but I think if it was satire, it would appeal to the girlies and not the men, whereas I think this has got a lot more women riled up than it has men. I think men aren't going to look at this and go, wow, what a political message. They're going to go, oh yeah, woman on her knees being dragged by the hair, because it gives into a lot of fetishes, a lot of the kink community. Let's not even get started about those people, because Christ, they're going to be coming for me like a nonce in a playground, honestly. So don't have a go at me, kink community. I'm not listening to you today. You can stay out of this, because in that case we can't criticize anything, because you can say, well, that's someone's kink, you're not allowed to say. Look, I'm rambling. Let's get back on track. My opinion is that I don't like it. I think creating this idea that the only way we can be in touch with our sexuality is via submission, I think is a dangerous ideology to explore. But having said that, do I think that all submission is inherently misogynistic? Maybe, I don't know. Does that mean I think that women shouldn't be submissive in the bedroom if they're consenting with their partner? No, I don't really think so. It's actually a very hard conversation to have, because I think you could argue that most things are at the center of the male gaze. Most things are at the center of the patriarchy. And I think if we were to try and avoid every single element of the patriarchy, we would be running around in circles. And I think there would be a high chance that we're pushed into a level of conservatism, which is what a lot of people are worried about. I do think, however, criticizing this does not make you conservative. I don't think it does. I think this picture kind of pays homage to all of the old media which are put in now, where women in old adverts and old propaganda to convince women that they belong, to serve their man, they belong in the kitchen, they ultimately just belong on their hands and knees at the use and the free use of a man, which was very, very popular back in the day. So I do think that showing a cover art to kind of pay ode to that is slightly odd decision. Do I think she, though, individually is responsible for setting women back? No, I don't really think that. And I think there is room for criticism. There is room to say, why do you do that? Yeah. But I don't think it is fair with everything going on in the world when you look at the fact that we've got insane things happening in the world that are at the hands of men or at the hands of religion. For example, we've got female genital mutilation issue, which is one of the most disturbing things I think I can think of. We've got women being trafficked across the world, inequalities for women just in society in general, and especially in other countries, compared to what we've got in Western society. It's horrible. So do I think that she is the worst person affecting women ever? No. And I think anybody that genuinely thinks that is just rage baiting, because we know that she's not, that she's not the big evil hand of crushing women into submission and ending equality for all of us. I don't think that's the case. I just think at most it is ignorant and a little bit insensitive and honestly a cheap effort at satire. I think there are many other things that you could have done. Now, I do not think, contrary to a lot of people's belief, that you have to be covered up, that you can't show sexuality. You know the amount of people that I get, and I think this is why this whole thing resonated with me, the amount of people that I get that come onto my channel, they find me being very anti. They think, oh, she's conservative, she doesn't like women, perfect. They go over to my Instagram, they see what I post, and they then get annoyed that I show skin and that you can see my nipple piercings through my top. It's genuinely insane. So do I think that in order to be a feminist, you have to cover up all the time? You can't show sexuality. You can't be in touch with your sexuality publicly? No, I don't. Because I think if we really start to shame every woman ever for appealing to the male gaze, we are going to, unfortunately, take many, many steps backwards. For example, if I now go to the gym in the shorts that I wear on my bra, you could argue, isn't that for the male gaze, Katie? Because, men like tits, men like ass, and you're showing things that kind of show them off. If you start to say, well, you can't do that because you're appealing to the male gaze, therefore you're not a feminist, we are kind of going down a slippery slope. And I don't want to go back to a time where women are getting shamed just for showing skin, just for showing that they're sexual creatures just like men. Because this is why we have a massive problem of men thinking, well, we're the sexual ones, so we can do X, Y, Z. And women, if you show sexuality, you're a whore. We don't want to go back to that. I enjoy being able to talk about sex. I enjoy being able to, consensually show myself in a way that I think shows my sexuality or shows how I feel or makes me look sexy. I don't think we should shame women for that. And if we really start to criticize women for every single thing that they do that you can link to the male gaze, I think it's quite a slippery slope. And then we're also giving men what they want because, there is this whole purity culture that's going around at the moment. And I really don't want us to fall back into that. Having said that, do I think that this is very tasteful? Not really. As I said, I think it's cheap effort. I think you could have done something else. And to the people saying there's so much more political things we could be talking about right now. Although, like I said before, there are bigger issues for women. And the reason I mention that is because I don't like people saying, oh, well, she's the reason we're going backwards, because that's not entirely fair. However, I do think this idea that because there are other issues going on in the world, not even just with, the patriarchy and how women are being treated, just bigger political issues in general, doesn't mean we can't talk about stuff like this, because that's the route I've also seen people take. Well, we're literally on the brink of World War III, you can't possibly care. Well, that's ridiculous. If we started to just dismiss every small thing that comes up to discuss just because there are bigger fish to fry, it's giving, you can't be sad about that because I've got bigger problems. It's just like, no, we can care about multiple things at once. The problem is with this Discord about Sabrina that I actually don't like is that I feel like a lot of people use it to be misogynistic, and people that previously didn't like her, they use it as a bandwagon to hop on to absolutely shame her. And I know that happens online every time I see a woman that starts to be criticised for something valid, because let's not forget, Sabrina hasn't just released this album cover. To me, the issue I have with it is what comes alongside the other stuff, the Lolita photo shoot, which all of her fans will glaze and say, the photo shoot wasn't a reference to Lolita, it was a coincidence, which apparently she said it was a coincidence. I don't buy that. I really don't. If you guys are wondering, Kate, what's Lolita? Lolita is just search what the film is. Just search what the film is, because I don't know what I'm allowed to say on here. But it's ultimately a film that at first glance kind of seems to glamorize pedophilia. But I think the film glamorizes it more than the book was meant to. And there's this one scene of this very young girl lying in the garden with a dress on that's like wet, and then the guy is in the house like looking at her. Really creepy and weird. She did a photo shoot very similar, and all the Sabrina fans are absolutely glazing that like a cream pie. Like there's no way that you didn't know that was a link. And before anyone says, what about Lana? Or what about Lana Del Rey? She did the same. Yeah, okay, I also would criticize that too. Like, just because someone else does it doesn't mean you've got to. So that's the first thing I would say. About first thing, this is about the millionth thing I've said. So yeah, it's that combined with the fact that she's had some lyrics that people find a bit weird. I think people's overall problem with Sabrina is this kind of obsession with being so small and tiny. There's this one lyric that she has that's about like how she kind of looks like a little girl. It's very strange. Let's see if I can find it. So everyone's basically saying that that's a little bit weird. It's almost like she's constantly making ode to the fact that she's so, you know, that audio that's like, my tiny frame and my what is it, my sweet little innocent voice or something like that. I don't know. And yeah, I find it slightly odd when people really cater to this whole like, I'm so small and petite, because like I'm 5'2", right? But I'm also working out to be jacked, because I really don't like, Guys, I have a crazy anecdote that I want to tell you that happened to me when I used to be friends with someone that I met on Valorant. Kind of makes sense now. So I was friends with this guy. Sorry, boyfriend, I know you edit this. Probably not the nicest thing to hear. I was friends with this guy for a very long time. His name was Anthony. So Anthony, if you're watching this, sorry, mate. And we were like quite good friends. And one time we were playing and he asked how tall I was. Bit weird. And I was like, oh, I'm 5'2". And he was like, what the fuck, you're so small, you're so tiny, ah. Anyway, the next day, he sent me a Snapchat of my big age, Christ. And I woke up and I opened it. And it said, I had a dream. It was like a video snap. And he was like, I had a dream last night where you were like in a cage and like all my like old guy friends came around and you. And I was like, okay. And he was like, I think it's because you told me how small you were, so it just kind of like turned me on. Bear in mind, we're friends. I don't know where this came from. We just played Valorant together. Like, babe, I just want to main Viper. Like, what's going on here? And then it just made me realize that like loads of people like fetishize being small, because it's like you're so petite and tiny, you can be thrown around. Like it's such a porn right thing, right? Now I'm not saying that that's what Sabrina is doing, but I don't think it's pick me to say your height. I don't think it's pick me occasionally to like talk about how small you are, because like sometimes it's a fact, right? But I do think the sexual references alongside your height gets to a point where it's a little bit weird. Not to be that friend that's too woke. Yes, there are bigger fish to fry. Is it really that deep? Not necessarily. Are we going to fail as a society because of this? Not necessarily, but that's the whole point of discourse, right? It's like English language. It's like point, evidence, explain, link. We're just talking about it. We're just talking about what might be the case. And we don't know why she's doing it. This is just an assumption. Plus, I'm just a bit of a hater, you know? A lot of people in the comments are saying things like, she's so obsessed with looking like a child. Sabrina gives off vibes. Nina means little girl. If she means short and petite, she could have just said bajita, which means a short girl. She doesn't even look like a little girl. In my opinion, I do think that's a little bit strange. Again, is she the devil? No. Will society always jump on a bandwagon to hate on a woman? Yes. So I'm a bit split here, guys. Do I think you could do things to avoid criticism like this? Yes. But do I think people would pick stuff apart anyway? Also, yes. You can't really win. But at the same time, if it was me, I would avoid doing like that, because that, alongside the Lolita photo shoot, alongside the man-child thing, it does just seem like cheap marketing. And, you know, we are all aware these days that a big thing is that sells, and I just think I like to see something different. And another talking point that I've seen from, and I want to bring this up, though it is not my place to say, I am not a person of colour, I don't want to speak on behalf of people of colour. However, I've seen a lot of women of colour talk about how if this was a black woman or a brown woman, the response would be a whole lot different, that there would be less defenders. I've seen a lot of people of colour say, like, when women of colour do this, it's, you know, it's seen as like disgusting, and like people will be more slut-shamey, and with Sabrina it's more like, oh, she's just, you know, in touch with her sexuality. Now, I don't know, again, I'm not a person of colour, but I thought I'd get a perspective of a person of colour here, just, you know, for a bit more, I guess, of a different outlook on the situation. Like, people, you know, saying when, like, if Megan Thee Stallion or Doja Cat does stuff like this, people are like, oh, like, you know, anything but, like, actual talent these days. Which, yeah, I mean, I can kind of see that. I think there are a lot of Sabrina Carpenter glazers here. I think in terms of the Sabrina stuff, that's 20 minutes of non-stop talking. I think I'm going to move on from that. Let me know what you guys think, because genuinely I'm open to different perspectives. In summary, do I think defending her to high is valid? Not really. I think it's very evident she has made some questionable decisions. Do I think she is the worst person in the world, taking us back, you know, and undoing years of hard work? No, not really. But do I think there are some insensitive images that she's trying to portray, all at the hand, I guess, of trying to promote her music? Yeah. I'm genuinely torn. I'm more thinking it's just weird, to be honest. Do I think she's a horrible person? No. Anyway, let's go on to drum roll, please. I was going to pretend to do drums, but that's really cringe. The Sydney Sweeney bath soap. If you don't know what that is, it is bath soap that Sydney Sweeney released that has a hole in it. Yeah. So Sydney Sweeney, if you don't know, is a actor who kind of, I think, rose to fame, if I'm correct, from Euphoria, playing the character Cassie, who was a very over-sexualized character who, for some reason, the director of Euphoria made her get her tits out every 5 seconds, even though the director of Euphoria, his mum actually kind of looked like Cassie. Really weird, all right? A lot of people would have heard from Sydney Sweeney because of Instagram Reels and the memes that I made about her, and ultimately just the sexualization of her, which is really ironic when the character Cassie, the whole storyline was that she was over-sexualized from a very young age and that all she wanted to do was find love. So I think it's very ironic that she is now known, unfortunately, by a lot of people for having big boobs and being blonde, which she's made jokes about before, and as far as I'm aware has said that she doesn't want to be known as the girl with big boobs and, you know, like some blonde bimbo, in her words. So recently she released a bath soap, and I'll show you the ad now because it's something.
Oh, you dirty little boys. Are you interested in my body? Wash. Well, you can't have it because this isn't for boys.
So, yeah, everyone was also very annoyed at this, and I think, honestly, a big part of people's annoyance is that if you look at where we are at in society, and a lot of men will like to say, you guys have equality, what more do you want? We don't. We don't have equality. If we had equality, there wouldn't be, you know, multiple murders of women every day. There wouldn't be a epidemic. There wouldn't be women dying at the hands of men on a regular basis. When we achieve, you know, not that, then we'll start to maybe look at equality rising. But we are not in an equal society. We are in a society where a lot of men still objectify women and genuinely only see them as objects. As you guys will have known if you've watched my videos, you know, we've seen into that world. It's a sad, depressing world. So I think, you know, having a combination of the Sydney Sweeney bath soap, Sabrina Carpenter being on her hands and knees being dragged by the hair by a man, it's a very, very weird time, especially when you've got the Bonnie Blue petting zoo and Bonnie Blue doing interviews with Andrew Tate. It makes you think, yeah, we're not going anywhere. And I think that is the issue. It's a collective of all of these kind of micro issues that are building up to, I guess, seem to almost represent women online. And I think that's my biggest issue. It's like, if you were to say to someone now who's an avid user of social media, you know, name 3 women on social media, a lot of people's mind would probably go to Sydney Sweeney, Bonnie Blue, Lily Phillips, Sabrina Carpenter, because of what the media latches onto and because of these stories that we've got going on. And it's a shame to have women represented in this way, because it's really not doing us any favors when it comes to how we're viewed and treated. Because men, you know, if you look at the comment section, man, on this kind of discourse, it's men being like, women have it so easy, you know, and women want equality, and they objectify themselves, because a lot of men and a lot of people can't understand, you know, there's a there's consent, there's consenting to do something with your body, there's consenting to, for example, take a picture where you can see your cleavage. Like, they don't seem to get what the difference is between I'm walking down the road and I don't want you to catcall me because I'm just minding my business, and then me posting a selfie where I'm like, hey, I really look good and I'm going to post this. They think, well, if you don't want to be catcalled in the street, why would you post stuff like this? I think that's the problem. It's this collective message that a lot of these minor things are kind of creating, if that makes sense. So with the Sydney Sweeney bath soap stuff, I think, honestly, this annoys me slightly more, mainly because, you know, it's a brand deal. Like, she took money to do this. To me, it's quite a difficult conversation without almost contradicting my own opinions. Because a lot of people are saying, why would you come online? Why would you do these interviews, right? And say, I don't want to be known as the blonde with big boobs who's sexualized, and then go and take a sponsorship for a soap with a hole in it. Because people would say, well, you know, she's consenting to do that ad. So just because she's doing a sexual ad doesn't mean she always needs to be sexualized. But I do think, okay, cancel me. I do think that's a little bit weird. If I was trying to avoid being overly sexualized in a world where you're going to be sexualized anyway, unfortunately, not Sydney Sweeney, by the way, but women in general, I wouldn't take an ad like that. That's not me meaning to say she should cover up forever and never be sexual. I think there are other ways to do it other than doing a video being like, hey boy, what did she say? She says, like, it wasn't even hey boys. She says, hello you dirty little boys. Now, I'm not going to lie, perhaps one of the weirdest part about that is calling someone a dirty little boy, and that the whole point of the ad is saying it's not for you little boys, it's for men. First of all, any younger little boys, just because you've gone it's for men doesn't mean they're not going to buy it. Second of all, releasing a soap with a hole in it, to me, sends the message that men will anything. And guys, you're going to hate me to go back to the turkeys and the factories again, but they will anything, all right? And to have your name associated with an object with a hole in it, the Sydney Sweeney bath soap, and it's a soap with a hole in it. I mean, that's one way to encourage men to wash their I guess. But, you know, to me, just why? Why would you do that? Like, again, personally, if I was trying to minimize the sexualization I'm going to receive, I would not release a bath soap with my name on it that has a hole in it. That's like me releasing a fleshlight and going, guys, I don't want you to know me for these things, but here's a fleshlight of my pussy for you to and think of, you know? It's just weird. I wouldn't do that. Again, do I think it's the end of the world? No. Does she have bodily autonomy? Can she do what she wants? Yes. Does that mean she's, you know, protected from criticism? Also no. Same with the Sabrina Carpenter thing. I keep forgetting her name. I'm not doing that on purpose. I'm just terrible with names. Cheers. I think it's a really complicated topic to start talking about the sexualization of women and whether or not women should slightly censor themselves to avoid that, because no, I don't think they should. I think at the end of the day, men are going to sexualize us regardless, you know? I mean, I don't have massive boobs and I still get sexualized if I have tops that slightly show my skin, and that's coming from someone with a pretty flat chest. Men are going to do it regardless. I don't think that's how it should be. That's not me saying men will be men, because that's not true. Men should be raised correctly. Men should act accordingly. Do they most of the time statistically? No. Sorry guys, never beating the man-hater allegations here. I'm so dehydrated. I just think, again, it's a cheap attempt at marketing. You can market anything these days if you just make it about sex. Do I, again, think that's always a bad thing? No. Do I think when you're targeting it going, hey, you dirty little boys, do I think that's weird? Yes. Do I think that's weird, especially alongside saying that you don't want to be known as being sexualized? Yeah. Again, I know you shouldn't say that, and I know I'm going to get mad people, but I can't help how I feel, guys. I'm sorry. Let me clear up, though. Do I think that means people can see this and go, well, I'm going to call her a slut, I'm going to slut shame her, I'm going to sexualize her for the rest of my life? Also, no. I just want to make that clear. I mean, that should be obvious in this day and age. It's not really.
Are you going to explain why you have the Sydney Sweeney soap and why is there a hole in it?
First of all,
I found it in your bathroom.
Listen, I'm trying to be more hygienic. Second of all, it came with the hole in it. So
it came with the hole. This giant?
With the hole.
This giant?
Yes.
Bro, if I did this, you would go insane.
Did what? Wash your body?
Why would you buy the Sydney Sweeney soap? We're in a relationship.
Read the back of the box. It's good for your skin. It's soap to clean yourself.
What are those excuses? That makes no sense.
Dude, you buy stupid laboo-boos. I don't complain.
Well, that's a skip, by the way. That's Natalie Reynolds. Hater. I might do a video on her at some point, actually. And yeah, that's the soap, in case you were wondering. Just a gaping hole in the soap. I think it's quite funny as well, because people go, it's clearly a joke. Yeah, but guys, come on. Should we all agree that there definitely is a man that has put his in that soap? Like, that, if men turkeys, then men soap. You know, like, I guarantee you half the men that the soap, that's the only time soap has touched their cock. Anyway, in conclusions, probably quite a short video, but because it's mainly talk and I don't want to bore your guys' ear off. In conclusion, do I think that either of these women should be, you know, the target of a hate campaign in the name of bringing down feminism? No. Do I think that releasing a body soap, right, with a hole in it and sitting there and saying that you can call yourself a feminist is also correct? No. And a lot of people aren't going to like that. People seem to have this theory these days that feminism is just this big umbrella that, you know, you can just bend the rules of. If you actually, I beg of you guys. I'm serious. Like, most of my audience are incredible. I think I have some of the most intelligent, you know, in tune with reality members of society that watch my videos, and I love that. I love that. Anybody that watches my videos and, you know, turns around and says, oh, yeah, but feminism is what it means to me. Chances are you don't actually like my videos because you completely miss the point of feminism and also what my videos are trying to do. Feminism isn't one size fits all. It's not. You know, imagine if you said that about any other movement ever. Feminism it's one thing. It's one aim. And the aim is to not be under a patriarchy. You can't call yourself a feminist if you release a bar of soap, right? Or you can, sorry, but I don't take you seriously. And I actually find it annoying, right, to feminists who actually align with feminism, because it gives feminists such a terrible name, and it's like a never-ending battle, right? Also, do I think it's feminist to pose on your knees with your hair being grabbed? Also, no. Again, the Sabrina Carpenter fans aren't going to like that. I just think you can't bend the rules of feminism to fit yourself. It doesn't make any sense. You can think, okay, having nuance actually about this, I think you can believe inherently that you are a feminist, because I think many people just think, well, as long as I want equality for men and women. But if you're doing things that are genuinely just the antithesis of equality for women, I don't really think you genuinely are a feminist, whether you believe it or not. That's like people who say they're not racist and then, you know, use... The door's knocked. The door just knocked, so knows what sentence I was halfway through. Anyway, I'm going to leave the video here. Don't want any crazy hate to anyone in the comments. Like, let's have some healthy, safe discourse. Let's talk about this like adults, okay? Let me know what you think. Let me know if you think I missed any talking points. I did make a list of things I wanted to talk about, but then I was like, I'm probably going to seem like a robot, so it's easier to talk off the top of my head. Take a breath, Kate. All right, well, I hope you enjoyed today's video. I'll see you in the next one.